Walking along pipes. No microtransactions. Walking along pipes. No loot boxes. Walking along more pipes. No live service bullshit. Mantling. No unfinished bullshit game code. Walking along more pipes. No pay-to-win mechanics. Welcome to Star Wars Fallen Order. You walk along pipes. Copper warning. Children between the ages of 0 and 13 are an abomination and a scourge on humanity. If you are watching this video and 13 or under, please fuck off to your basement dungeons and chain yourselves back to the wall. Don't come back until you are adults, or you will personally be responsible for destroying the internet. You have been warned. This video comes with a long list of disclaimers. Basically, the gaming year is winding up and I don't have the time to spend hundreds of hours per game capping everything and doing a professional and comprehensive review. Which I did once, allegedly. But nevertheless, there are a few games I wanted to at least cover quickly before Christmas arrives, Santa shows up and shits over all of our plans. So be aware. I gave the game enough of a spin to get a basic handle on it, but I've not completed this game. Fuck, not even close to half finishing it. I'm not that much of a Star Wars fanboy. I'm certainly not that much of a Star Wars video game fanboy at all. And if I'm entirely honest, these kind of fight mechanics, rock, paper, scissor combat, isn't really my thing. I know lots of people are vastly more educated on the history of the franchise, lore and the games, but fuck it, I want to make a video, and being ignorant, lazy and unprofessional has never stopped me before. Not that any of what I've said makes me sound very enthusiastic about it, just take it on faith. I'm absolutely fucking exhilarated at the prospect of reviewing a game about running along pipes. Look, I love the idea of being a Jedi as much as the next idiot, but let's just say, eventually a day came when I realised that I can stare at that pen on my desk for the rest of fucking eternity, and I ain't gonna get it to move using the Force. So I moved on to drinking and being cynical instead. So what is Jedi Fallen Order? Fallen Order is a third-person action-adventure game where you get to run around, swinging a lightsaber, running along pipes, and run away from the Empire. I don't know, it felt a bit like a 3D platformer to me. You get to soak up the atmosphere of the Star Wars universe, which conspicuously lacks the usual levels of fuckery associated with an EA-published title. The game uses a system which Jason DeHarris, lead combat designer, referred to as thoughtful combat. Personally, I found it to be 1, not very complex, and 2, a pain in the arse to master. Hence, I played it on Mummy Don't Let the Bad Men Hurt Me difficulty settings, mainly because I didn't feel like investing enough time or concentration into learning how to be good at it. And that, in and of itself, is quite telling. For those of you who don't know, Star Wars is a mildly popular science fiction franchise. In the beginning, there were 3 good films, and a fuck ton of merchandising. In fact, the trilogy pretty much put movie merchandising on the map, and some people claim it was pretty much its genesis. Then there were some shitty reversions of said films, followed by too many shit sequels and reboots to count. Basically, there were 3 films which were popular, Because they had good stories. And since then, they have pretty much fucked it all down the shitter. Mainly because they decided to drop good stories and focus on pew pew lasers, space battles, and shit they can make into dollies to sell to kids. Oh yeah, and then they got woke. You would in fact be forgiven for thinking that they have been trying to fuck it up for decades. Then, The Mandalorian was released a few weeks ago, and that might well be the best thing in the entire Star Wars franchise, full stop. Yeah, I said it. Along the way, people also started making Star Wars video games. To a large degree, they have been generally decent, some have been brilliant, and generally have a better track record than the movie sequels and remakes. But not to be outdone in the now legendary race to fucking destroy the Star Wars franchise completely, EA decided to release Star Wars Battlefront 2. A game so comprehensively corrupt, morally bankrupt, and hated for its monetization and pay-to-win mechanics that when some fucktard from EA tried to peddle it as giving the player a sense of pride and accomplishment, it quickly became the most downvoted comment in the history of Reddit. The situation only being mitigated by some degree when the entirely independent, unbiased, and totally not working in collusion with EA, moderators decided to lock the thread and astroturf the entire fucking subreddit. Because reasons. So what is the legacy of the game? The game is developed by Respawn Entertainment and published by EA. Respawn is famous for making good games, including Titanfall and Titanfall 2, which are both excellent. Probably because of internal politics at EA, both games were vastly under-promoted and under-supported and were not massive commercial hits, which many people cannot fathom. They famously also made Apex Legends, which is fine apparently. The crew for Fallen Order include a team led by Stig Asmussen of God of War fame. Stig, for the record, is a fine, manly name. I'm going to assume Stig is 7 foot tall, has a giant beard, and takes an axe to work. Maybe not. EA, on the other hand, is famous for less reputable reasons. Loot boxes, pay to win, and live service fuckery. Tanking their own share value. Fucking everything up. Being evil. Lying to government inquiries.
Do you consider loot boxes to be an ethical feature of your games?
Well, first, we don't call them loot boxes. I think that was...
Whatever term you wish to apply to them, do you consider them ethical?
So what we look at as surprise mechanics. We don't call them loot boxes. We don't call them loot boxes. We don't call them loot boxes. We don't call them loot boxes.
Rolling out monetization and kiddie gambling on such a horrific scale that they triggered a global wave of governmental investigations and legislation into loot boxes and kiddie gambling. This is a strange marriage. And when I say strange, I'm talking Jessica Alba marrying Jeffrey fucking Epstein levels of strange as all fuck. Even stranger than this. So far, the marriage seems to be working. In fact, the truism that I keep hearing is this. Respawn can make good games as long as EA keeps its nose out of their fucking business. So what's the basic story in the game? Cal Cystitis, aka Rape Man, is secretly a Jedi working in a junkyard. I say Rape Man because he looks like a generic clone of every police mugshot of a frat boy rapist I've ever seen. Thank God the actor who plays him doesn't look like a raper in real life. Or maybe he does. When he uses his Jedi powers, the Empire, who I happen to admire by the way, discover him on their Jedi Mojo detector meter, or some shit, because that's a thing now apparently. There is a confrontation where Rape Man is too slow to save his mate Mole Rat from this incredibly sexy plastic wrapped super slurpy babe evil Jedi. Good way to go if you ask me. I was going to say that Mole Rat had a head like a half-bald testicle, but as you will quickly realise, this description is not sufficient for distinguishing between many NPCs in the game. Or testicles. The Empire sends Shrink Wrap and another evil Jedi to catch him, who incidentally also kinda has a head a little bit like a half-bald testicle too. I was going to refer to them as Sith, then thought evil Jedi, then googled Inquisitor, because, you know, half the world is starving, the polar ice sheets are melting, we might get hit by an asteroid. But apparently, making mistakes about Star Wars lore is what's really important, right? Rape Man is then conveniently rescued in the nick of time by a couple of walking, breathing plot devices. And what do you know? One of them has a head like a half-bald testicle. See a theme developing here? The other one is modelled like her eyes are being slowly sucked out of her head in a vacuum. Unlike Rape Man, she definitely doesn't look like this in real life. That's one for the private collection. Then they all fly down the yellow brick hyperdrive road to take Rape Man Cystitis to the planet Thunberg, where he has to hug a tree or something, so he teams up with his cute, loyal, highly marketable sidekick, Merchandise 1. Much frolics are to be had as he casually trots around, murdering all the indigenous life forms, walking along some pipes, and boldly goes wherever the fuck he is needed to fulfill his destiny, advance the plot, spin his laser sword like a fucking majorette, and creak the script into Act 2. What follows is a fairly time-tested formula of third-person mob grinding, puzzle solving, boss fighting, interspersed with cutscenes and exposition, and lots of pipe walking. And yes, I deliberately said laser sword instead of lightsaber, just to trigger people. And I bet it fucking worked. Star Wars Fallen Order is a respectable enough effort. It sticks to the lore apparently. It is a reasonable story. The Star Wars fans are happier than pigs in shit. The Star Wars video game fans are happier than Prince Andrew on the Lolita Express. And you don't need to buy any microtransactions to advance your progress. And nobody is peddling kiddie gambling. And that's probably the most sympathetic description of any EA game this fucking decade. And did I mention that if you're under 13 years of age that you can fuck off? So what is my take on this game? I'll be honest, it's not really my bag. It kinda left me cold. It is, however, a respectable product, pro-consumer, and respectful of the Star Wars legacy. That's gotta count for something in these dark times. There is no doubt that this game is principally defined by its predecessor, Star Wars Battlefront 2. Or more precisely, Fallen Order is very deliberately trying not to repeat any mistakes made by Star Wars Battlefront 2 in the past. I have no doubt that 9 AM day one in the first meeting they all sat down and the first words spoken about this game were this: whatever game we make, it must not turn out anything like Star Wars Battlefront 2. Let's be honest, if EA repeated that shit show, their company would vaporise into a fucking junk stock instantly. Fallen Order's prime directive was, don't fuck anything up enough to cause a scandal. And this directive has permeated through its creation and its publication. And yes, I know Prime Directive is from Star Trek and not Star Wars. But, you know, they're pretty much the same thing, right? The best way to describe Star Wars Fallen Order is this. Throw all of the following into an industrial blender. A couple of books of lore-friendly fiction, one book of lore-friendly fan fiction, not that slasher stuff. Then add some Titanfall, Baton Twirling, Dark Souls, Tomb Raider, Batman Arkham Asylum, fugly bloated stuffed animal toys, Shadows of Mordor, a fuckton of pipe walking, God of War 3, Bloodborne. Blend it up with some Mountain Dew and pour the resulting mixture out into a classic AAA single purchase mould, without adding any microtransactions or bullshit games as a service fuckery. When it's dry, Tip it out when it's good and set. Carefully polish it and then give it a quick coat of Star Wars paint and a tiny sprinkle of pop culture just for good measure. Needless to say, all the ingredients have been double checked to make sure they have not been contaminated by Electronic Arts' grubby little germ splattered mitts. Despite this game not really turning me on, it's all rather pleasantly done and includes some real creative flair. The introduction sequences were oddly compelling, I think drawing on Spike Jonze's directing style at one point. I'm not gonna lie, I was fucking shocked when the opening scene started accompanied by Turkic throat singing. I literally was impressed. Then did a quick Google and it turned out to be the Mongolian rock band The Who, performing Black Thunder. Their soundtrack skills certainly went all the way to 11. I'm not gonna lie, that was a cool choice. And whoever suggested it either has an incredible knowledge of world music or stays up late getting drunk watching very weird videos on YouTube. Because that's exactly how I originally learned about altai throat singing. The overall graphical look of the game is good. Some of the generic aliens look a bit shit. Like they were designed by children. Seriously, I don't get the design choices behind some of the comedy spiders and cuddly toy animal enemies. But the game world itself was stunning and frequently beautiful. They made some very interesting choices with the character creation menu. 1, they decided to scrap it. And 2, therefore you were forced to play as some kind of nerd fuck posh boy. This character looked very odd as a choice, to me at least. He looks more like a Harry Potter character, not a brooding, covert Jedi on the run. Frankly, this fella looked like the sort of tosser who is rude to the staff in student bars. You know, the kind of prick who says stuff like, "My father owns half of Herefordshire, so you'd better serve me next, or I'll have you fired." Then cries like a fucking punts when the doorman gets him in a headlock and throws him out into the street. Look, the last thing I would ever do is judge someone based solely on their appearance, but this guy definitely looks like your typical college dorm rapist. So yeah, I wasn't happy being forced to play looking like a rapist. For some reason, there was a choice, and they chose to pick a character that looks exactly like the sort of college frat boy police booking photo you see in the news reports when some sociopath gets arrested for raping someone behind a dumpster. Once you see it, it can never be unseen. Enjoy your video game. Let's face it, Respawn are fast earning themselves a reputation for having good form. Or should I qualify, they are earning themselves a reputation for being a developer that can produce solid video games, providing the publisher, Electronic Arts, keeps their fat, fucking, money-troughing snout out of the kitchen whilst they're preparing the meal. So in some ways, this is a victory for both of them. Respawn made a good game, and EA should congratulate themselves for doing the one thing they do incredibly well. Doing fuck all. The combat was acceptable, but not really the kind of thing I enjoy. The enemies do certain types of attacks, they have specific counters. You have to do them at the right time, then counter-attack. It's all fairly unforgiving if you are too lazy to pay attention. So needless to say, I got regularly fucked because I was just jabbing at buttons and trying to twat everything with my cosplay weapon as fast as I possibly could. In the end, I just set it on story mode, which might as well be called I win mode. Literally the only way you're going to die on story mode is if you fall off a cliff, which is one of the few activities that I actually managed to excel at. One thing about this game that kept jolting me out of the immersion was the environmental design. You know the law of instruments, sometimes called the law of the hammer? If the only tool you have is a hammer, you tend to treat everything as if it were a nail. Well, because you traverse this game by jumping, mantling, climbing and walking along pipes, it's like the entire world has been designed from a palette of pipes, metal panels, hanging plants and ledges. If the terrain doesn't qualify as any of these, then it's just generic filler models. It literally felt like a 3D platformer where I was constantly scanning the environment for my next traversable building block. It just didn't feel like I was organically traversing through the world. It felt like camouflaged Tetris. It was clunky and felt unnatural. And then there was the press V to climb mechanic. What is the point of that? If I run and jump off a ledge, fly 10 feet through the air and land on a climbable surface, the game prompts me to press V to climb. Why? If I don't press V, I fall to my death. I obviously jumped the chasm to climb up this shit on the wall. Why would I not want to press V and just drop off into the void? The button doesn't have a point. There is no choice to be made here, so why let me grab onto the surface just so the game can double check with the player if they really want to hang on, or would in fact prefer not to press V because dropping to your fucking death suddenly seems like a good thing to fucking do. The overall sound effects were not unpleasant, obviously because they were lifted straight from George Lucas's personal soundboard, although I would note that some of the Stormtrooper death screams sounded like they were lifted straight out of a Shy Ronnie video. The absence of gore and dismemberment made a lot of the combat feel sterile and childlike, like you were swinging a toy lightsaber. I've heard some bullshit excuses along the lines of they want decapitation and severed limbs to be used sparingly so that it's in keeping with the emotional impactfulness present in the films. But personally, I think this is a whole load of fucking horseshit. They removed nearly all of the gore, so it didn't get an adult rating. I guess this is just yet another step down the road of sanitising the franchise. I mean, they removed the bit where Han Solo shot first, so I guess nothing is sacred in the Star Wars universe anymore. The wall running mechanics are a bit tiresome, if I'm honest. I thought they were superb in Titanfall and fitted in really nicely. However, I question the wisdom of trying to cram it into every fucking Respawn game for the rest of eternity. It's got a bit of RPG light character points/perks levelling up system. You level up, you get points, you use the points to click on the little circles, and then the magic happens. It's inoffensive. You also find shit in crates, so if you really want to pimp your Jedi, you can rock out by customising your poncho, or hanging Christmas decorations on your lightsaber. I think the bottom line is that this game doesn't fuck anything up. It does not disappoint. It's basically a fairly old school, fairly generic blend of old-fashioned game mechanics, all very well assembled, nicely packaged and professionally done. There are some nice creative flourishes and attention to detail, and the cinematics and cutscenes are expertly crafted together, like they were assembled on a production line. Everything is precise, has the burrs removed, and the welding is efficient and done to spec. Like a production car. And I guess that's precisely how I felt about it. The game fundamentally did not hook me, because not fucking anything up isn't the same as creating something original and interesting. This game is nice, but didn't really say anything to me. We know the Empire is evil, allegedly. We know the good guys are the good guys. We know lightsabers are cool. Or laser swords. I'm not saberist. We know generic hostile NPCs need to be killed. We know ledges need to be mantled. And we know pipes need to be walked along. I don't have a bad thing to say about this game, really. But neither does it really inspire. This game is like a Jack Johnson song. I don't have a bad thing to say about Jack Johnson. His music is inoffensive. Would I listen to it? Maybe, if I was in a waiting room or stuck in a lift. But the fact that I can't even remember a Jack Johnson melody says something. This game is inoffensive and has even left out some of the cool stuff from other games for reasons nobody understands, but I guess it fulfills in a few key areas. It didn't cause a shitstorm on the internet. It didn't contain anything that people could use to hate on EA. It didn't cause another global wave of investigations into loot boxes and kiddie gambling. It's not going to leave anyone feeling ripped off. It's a nice Star Wars fix for fans that want to pootle around in Star Wars land and enjoy the scenery. So, you know, great, I guess. Functionality and fuckery. As soon as you fire it up, this game tries to sell you the idea that the game experience is truly enhanced by playing on a controller, even though I got it on PC. I wrote that sentence down and fed it into the 21 kiloton bullshitometer, and it spat out the following. This is a lazy, janky console port, and they fucking know it. It's not terrible, but you can tell they didn't exactly set up an emergency console port strike force to optimise the controls on mouse and keyboard. I get the impression some dude just shrugged at his manager and said, "There's some buttons, yo. Okay, I'll get right on to copy and pasting that after my nap." Most of the time the shitty nature of the port was bearable. However, just to add a little bit of piss to the beer, they decided on a few random hardbinds, for example in the Hollow map. So basically, when I wanted to go to a new planet, I had to literally go into the settings, unbind a key, select the planet, go back into the settings and rebind it. What a monumental fuck around. They do test this stuff, right? Generally the settings were counterintuitive. As soon as you go in, there's a big picture of a controller. A not subtle message at all for a fucking PC game. Some things you could select, and those selections would cancel afterwards, unless you gave it a special little rub by selecting it, and then giving it the official stamp of approval by hitting the space key as well. It was probably a better puzzle than some of the fucking game itself. The game's hand-holding was superb. At the start, it does a good job of combining live action sequences with exposition and tutorial stuff. It rolls out your skills as it rolls out the story. It's like your first day of school, where the teacher keeps an eye on you all day and nurses you through the fake challenges to build your confidence. The main difference being that unlike my first day at school, I did not at any point wet myself whilst playing Fallen Order. Needless to say, every single aspect of microtransactional fuckery and pedo caches have been clinically sanitised from this game. They simply didn't dare to try anything on. EA was literally like a shoplifter frozen in terror, standing in the middle of a department store who knows all 5 CCTV cameras are pointing right at them. They knew if they tried anything, they would be rugby tackled by security guards in a fucking instant. Given the levels of practical civil unrest that occurred with Star Wars Battlefront 2, they rightly shit themselves and decided to play this one straight. If you are a Star Wars fan desperate for a fix, well, here it is. You get to play a loot box free, semi-decent video game where you can soak up the Star Wars universe, albeit whilst looking like a raper. If you are primarily looking for a good video game, then this might tick enough boxes to pass muster. But it's not going to leave a lasting impression in my personal and humble opinion. Just because this game left me cold doesn't mean it's not good. Quite the opposite. I can intellectually see why this game is proving so popular with gamers, even if I don't enjoy it myself. It's like the model, Kate Upton. I can appreciate why people find her attractive, even if she leaves me cold. This said, I find her taste in video games fairly repulsive, so there is that. Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is a good solid game for a good solid price. This being said and done though, one thing is clear. Expectations from AAA publishers have sunk so low that not shit is the new good. The celebration and jubilation that Fallen Order has generated seems to be primarily caused by relief. Relief that EA didn't fuck up yet another Star Wars game. Star Wars Fallen Order is an acceptable product and is literally defined by what it's not. It's defined by what they were told it could not be. This game is not Star Wars Battlefront 2. That was the mission here, and it's mission accomplished. But there is just something slightly passionless about it. It's like you gave someone 200 quid to decorate your bedroom and you told them to go wild, spend the money however you like, go mad, pick any colours you want, just do your thing, be as creative as you want, just make it look nice. Then you come back a week later, the walls are painted grey, there's a generic motivational picture on the wall and an office chair by the bed. You know, technically it's fine, and it's done very professionally. They didn't paint over the windows or wallpaper over the door, and they can give you all the receipts for how they spent the money. But fucking hell, they could have done anything, and they did this? But for now, good luck, and happy hunting.